Did you know back in the 1500s, people would use urine to tan animal skins, therefore families would all pee in a single pot, and once a day they would take it to the tannery to sell. If your family needed to do this to survive, or make ends meet, then you were considered piss poor. But worse than that were the really poor people who couldn't even afford to buy a pot. They didn't have a pot to piss in, and they were often seen as the lowest of the low. During the 1500s, most people got married in June because they took their yearly bath in May, and by June they still smelled pretty good. However, since they were starting to smell, brides carried a bouquet of flowers to hide the body odor. Hence the custom today of carrying a bouquet when getting married. At that time, baths consisted of a big tub filled with hot water, and the man of the house had the privilege of the nice clean water, then all the other sons and men, then the women, and finally the kids. Last of all, the babies would take a bath, and by then the water was so dirty that you could actually lose someone in it. Hence the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. Now the next one is up for debate. Houses had thatched roofs, thick straw piled high, with no wood underneath. It was the only place for animals to get warm, so all the cats and other small animals, mice, bugs, lived in the roof. When it rained, it became slippery, and sometimes the animals would slip and fall off the roof, resulting in the idiom, "It's raining cats and dogs." At this point in time in history, most homes had a dirt floor, and only the wealthy had something other than dirt, leading people to coin the phrase dirt poor. The wealthy had slate floors that would get slippery in the winter when wet, so they would spread thresh, or straw, on the floor to help keep their footing. As the winter wore on, they added more and more thresh, until you couldn't even open the door without it falling outside. That's when they placed a piece of wood at the entrance, subsequently creating a threshold. In those old days, they cooked in the kitchen with a big kettle that always hung over the fire. Every day they lit the fire and added things to the pot. They ate mostly vegetables and did not get much meat. They would eat the stew for dinner, leaving leftovers in the pot to get cold overnight, then start over the next day. Sometimes stew had food in it that had been in there for quite a while, and thus the rhyme, peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot 9 days old. Every once in a blue moon, they would actually be able to afford pork, which made them feel quite special, and when visitors would come over, they would actually hang up their bacon to show it off. It was a sign of wealth that they could actually buy bacon, and that's where the phrase, "bring home the bacon," comes from. Back in those days, if you had money, you would have plates made of pewter. The only problem is, food with high acid content would cause some of the lead to leach onto the food, causing people to die of lead poisoning. This would happen most often with tomatoes. As a result, for the next 400 or so years, people actually believed that they were poisonous. They also used lead cups to drink ale and whiskey, and the combination would sometimes knock the drinker out for a couple of days. Someone walking along the road would take them for dead and notify the family. That's when they'd be laid out on a kitchen table for a couple of days, and the family would gather around and eat and drink, waiting to see if they would wake up, creating the custom of holding awake. At this point in time, land to bury the dead was few and far between, so they started digging up old bodies in order to reuse the spot. They were completely shocked upon opening one of the coffins and finding scratch marks on the inside, which can only mean one thing: they've been burying people alive. So in order to prevent this, they would tie a string on the wrist of a corpse, lead it through the coffin and up through the ground, and tie it to a bell. Someone would have to sit out in the graveyard all night to listen for the bell, thus the nickname, the graveyard shift. But make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments. Did you know about all these? Thanks for watching, and remember, if it's more interesting, you can find it here.